Alright, welcome back to Game 10 of Lucid's 2022 tournament, where we were playing Phlegra. It was turn 51. And it looks like this turn, we were on the defensive. A lot of Atlantean attacks here, not all of them against us, but no attacks by us. Well, I guess except this Fort Storm. That is fairly important. But still, prefer to see more of our flags on the left. Also of note, we are mentally attacked, or rather, one of our Tyrants was mentally attacked. Though the fact that the first Mind Hunt was successful against one of our super combatants is kind of a mental attack against myself. So yeah, I mean, we've talked about how magic resistance is a problem on the battlefield. It's also a problem off the battlefield. In true Dominions form, I have struggled in the past to Mind Hunt lesser targets than this. We do have at least one or two Tyrants that are moving back to get rekitted that are at magic resistance 18, but I find that anything over 20 can be pretty difficult for Mind Hunt to succeed with. Potentially Atlantis is using a Pretender with a really high astral value. I don't recall their Pretender offhand, and that can certainly help with penetration. Almost assuredly they're using some of the penetration items, but yeah, we're going to have to take this into account. We were already planning on increasing magic resistance for these fellows wherever possible. Obviously, they won't benefit from the spells we've been casting, Iron Will, right? They don't get that benefit on the strategic map. Another way that you can try to counter this is to dilute the targeting by just bringing extra commanders. In this case, probably we'd mostly have to use scouts. Because we probably don't want, a bunch of random commanders actually participating in the battles, because they'll definitely die. Another good option is, if you can bring an Astral Mage. Astral Mages will, block these attempts. But we don't have a ton of Astral Mages. We do have more than Phlegra normally does, thanks to our luck in finding some solid indies. But those are fairly valuable and also, likely to die if the Tyrant engages, in a battle solo with just the Mage there. Not to mention that Atlantis has those remote assassination, remote attack spells with the undead polar bears. So yeah, we'll definitely have to think about this. A couple of different options we can take, none of them super appealing. So, hopefully this is an anomaly and our Tyrants will be able to resist these more effectively in the future. In the good news department, we do find some magic sites. Hopefully these are death sites. Graveyard of the Damned. Mudfield sounds like an earth site, so that's nice. Both gem types that we're very interested in, so happy to see that. We catch a battle, Vedheim attacking Marignon. This looks like it's on top of their fort. This looks like a mercenary group, and they are up against nothing. So it looks like Marignon did not want to hang out. This probably is on top of a fort, just left one unit behind to maintain the siege. So that is good news for Vedheim, and vaguely good news for us. We're still pro Vedheim, but yeah, we're not fighting Marignon, so less important. Then we have an Atlantean group here. Looks like one of their smaller raiding groups, and they have come up against Ulm's. Oh, this is probably Wind of Death again, right? Surely that's what this is. Ooh, it looks like that fellow got Soul Slate, though, before I could click on him, and also before he was able to cast Wind of Death. So this is a Wind of Death trap that did not work out. A lot of Soul Slate targets here. I mean, I don't know a lot, but enough other units to be targeted. I guess that Atlantean Mage does have a lot more hit points than any of these other units, but would have expected him to have a much higher magic resistance. So a little bit surprised that Ulm was able to target him down, quickly enough before Wind of Death happened. Well, I'm not sure what this was now. Maybe once was a Wind of Death situation, but this explains why he got targeted down. He's diseased and about to die, but also doesn't have any gems for Wind of Death and not really in a position. So maybe this was just a raid that Atlantis was doing and wasn't expecting to run into Ulm's army. So obviously that does not work out for Atlantis, but at the end of the day, not really that relevant. There's a reason they were using that guy as a raider. He was going to die anyway. Losing a few units, no big deal. So yeah, Atlantis doing a good job raiding, but Ulm does block that one. And then we have Vedheim attacking Utgard in a location with their main force that broke out from Xibalba's old capital. Either last turn or the turn before, and they run into a pretty hefty province defense dump. Like I said, this player from Utgard does like to spend a lot on province defense, unlike many other players. So yeah. But obviously Vedheim is going to clean this up. It does trigger gem usage though, right? There's a lot of gems to be spending. So, in some ways, this is a lot of gold to lose for not much effect in terms of, units that you're going to be killing on Vedheim's side. But, you are trading gold for gems, especially in the late age, may be worth it. Yeah, looks like probably 30 province defense, which is hefty, but, does force the army to go through its whole script. Also nice in terms of scouting. Vedheim, doesn't really lose anything other than the gems, so probably content with that result. And then we get attacked in a location by Atlantis. Yeah, this is that small raiding group. We moved a Flaming Arrows squad out here, and also, speaking of province defense dumps, we have done one here, so this should be just fine. Hopefully we didn't spend the gems. We do win handily. And then Ulm is attacking Atlantis in another location. This is probably a raid. I think Ulm, at least in terms of what they're fighting Atlantis with, the only one army that's so we've seen so far. Yeah, some body ethereal spam on some Ulmish infantry against nothing. They should be able to handle that, no problem, and they do. And then we get attacked in Raga. Right, this is our Tyrant, who indeed got pushed. Just as I feared. Of course, that was, future Trajanus, using some hindsight, though I didn't recall if we did get pushed or not, but, now that I've played a lot more, that's, much more on my mind. It's not inconceivable that we win this, but right, we've seen stuff like this not work out before. So this guy is a fellow that has an amulet of anti-magic, right? So magic resistance 27 now that he's been through his script. Protection is a little on the low side. Hopefully he's going to be casting something else to help fix that. Yeah, you can see the Soul Slays already starting to roll in. So we've got Iron Will first, definitely a good call. Soul Vortex, always useful. Temper Flesh, and then Fire Shield. Looks like we're probably not going to do Iron Skin, which, yeah, fatigue is a bit of an issue. Maybe you're going to get Earth Power. I do think Fire Shield is reasonable. That's mostly for the undead and just to help with our killiness in general. Fire Shield's not going to do great against Atlantis' regular troops, but right, there are a lot of undead. I think realistically, our thugs are never going to be able to just chew through an army like this, so maybe Fire Shield's just not worth it, right? Because it's like, well, the thought is, in order to be able to chew through the undead, we're going to need something like Fire Shield, which is true. Ooh, gifts from heaven, that's never good. Also, we've been paralyzed. Better to fail our magic resistance against a paralyze than a Soul Slay, but still less than ideal. Let's see, yeah, we've been paralyzed. I think that is there's a 46 down there. I think that is 46 turns, which is not good, right? That's a huge chunk of the battle that we're just going to be sitting here. Now, I mean, in the good news department, again, this is where Fire Shield helps because we don't need to be awake for Fire Shield. Yeah, you can see we're taking a lot of damage, though. Right, and this is where the Flying Shield from the other guy who got Soul Slayed, right, the Flying Shield helps a lot against these physical attacks. So this guy's probably not going to get Soul Slayed, but it's kind of looking like he might just get killed by mundane damage. Hopefully, let's see, has anti-magic gone off? No anti-magic even, so, the hope is that the Soul Vortex would be able to keep him up. But it does not look like it. His morale's broken, not that it matters, because he's still paralyzed forever. All right, this is a 43 now instead of a 46, but, he's got 3 hit points. So, yeah, this is not looking good. We'll see. Nope, we do not stabilize. Sometimes rolls go against you for a few turns and then go your way for a few other turns. So sometimes you can get low and it looks like you're going to go out and then things turn around. This was not one of those cases. So this is not a battle that we wanted to take, and we were right in not wanting to take it, but, our movement was foolish. And we pay the price for it. We kill 35 Ice Guard. Yeah, Ice Guard more expensive than your average, significantly more expensive than average troops, but absolutely not worth a fully kitted Tyrant. So yeah, the Tyrant's really not working out for us. Like I've said before, I'm certainly no expert when it comes to super combatants. A lot of people say there's no such thing as I don't know, a lot of people. Some people say there's no such thing as a super combatant in Dominions 5. I'm not sure I would go that far. But certainly, just in a solo unit against a competent player with a large mage core and dangerous units, it's a really tall order. So I do think that, our Tyrants need some cover. Like, having them operate completely solo like this is fine when they're just defeating, moderate-sized raiding groups and things like that. But they're not army killers, clearly, at least not these armies. So that is definitely bad news. Speaking of bad news, we're being attacked by Atlantis in another location. It says, yeah, again, being launched from underwater, right? This is one of the reasons that we didn't want to fight Atlantis, but Obviously, certain things happened prior to this. That's why we're here. So not a lot of province defense. I do think this will work out for Atlantis. A little bit of body ethereal spam. Very nice stuff. And indeed, they do take it. This isn't particularly dangerous. Honestly, Forgiving Fathers being used in this way, right, as raiders where it's more risky, not being part of a Soulslate communion is kind of a good thing for us. Losing a province, not a good thing, but I'm not too worried about that raiding group, but it is going to be an ongoing problem. And of course, here we have the storm, and there shouldn't be anything in here, and indeed there isn't, so no trap. We're happy about that. We should be able to take that with no losses, and indeed we do. Then we have some unexpected events. Wow, this would be a great event, plus 400% tax, except it's in a swamp, right? So percent of low is still not great. So that's too bad, but hey, still better than a negative event. Children disappearing at night, not the end of the world. Spring Fairy has been cited. This is actually a nice one, getting rid of some unrest, some growth and luck. Probably a decent province. And some unfortunate events, eliminate 10 province income. That's not great, but we are Misfortune 3, so can't complain. And then we patrol out an Atlantean scout in a location and a scout from Utgard. Yeah, this is our raiding group in the south that we decided to just hang out with because it doesn't have the gem reloads that it needs. We kill some filthy brigands, and I'll catch you guys after the jump. All right, this was the situation and what we did about it. The main thing is our army is moving forward, headed for Raga. Of course, we have been trying to heat Raga up. We can see that it's neutral temperature right now. There's a couple other places that are neutral temperature. It is early summer, which is, good for us right now. But, by the time that we're really ready to storm Raga, assuming that Atlantis sits inside of the fort, pretty good chance it'll be in the middle of winter, so that's less than ideal. But, it is what it is. We'll see. I don't think we're heating up the province again this turn. Yeah, doesn't look like it. Some of it is we're calling the god, but also we're basically out of fire gems. Certainly, we could scrape together enough for one more cast, but, we might want to wait a turn or two, right? Our army's not even there yet. Might not reach that location. We did see, pretty large force move into this lake. This is probably at least some of, perhaps all of the force that we saw fight in this fortification against Ulm. And then, of course, we know exactly what's on top of Raga. A pretty significant army as well, and they could absolutely combine in this province with a province defense dump. So this is definitely a bold move. Not necessarily one I agree with in retrospect. I do not recall the outcome. So, we'll have to see how that goes. I do think that this is a strong army. We have a lot of spell support here. We're going to be pumping out some of those excellent summons that we get, the national summons. They're up front. We have Tyrant that's been thugged out that's going to be leading the charge. A lot of crossbowmen, a good amount of Mouflon. We also have Wailing Winds here from our other Tyrant. So, this is probably about as strong as we're going to get, certainly in the short term. So, it may just be a question of this is what we have. If it can't win, we're going to lose anyway. But we certainly have picked potentially maximum hard mode. So we'll see if Atlantis, wants to take this battle. They might have a few retreats, though. We're not really seeing any in the province next door. And I don't recall any of the squads retreating from this battle with our Tyrant. So fingers crossed that one goes our way. At least Atlantis doesn't seem to be making a beeline for our capital, so that's good news. We can move this patrol group, our defense group back to do some researching. This is that location where Atlantis sent out their raider with the Forgiving Father. And unfortunately, they can hit a lot of different provinces from here, so we are having to waste some mage turns with various patrol groups, various things, mostly flaming arrows, also a little bit of air elementals. We're going to try to recapture the province with one of our tyrants here, and we're going to send our hero tyrant underwater to try to lock down this fort. We don't really have any undead yet, so, I don't know. Definitely we want to prevent this fort from recruiting as much as possible, but to just have one of our tyrants sitting there, I guess we could have him sit there and maybe build up the unrest enough where it's going to be a pain to do any recruiting. But yeah, it doesn't necessarily feel great, and certainly if this force in the capital moves out, we're probably going to have to like give up that siege regardless. You can see several forgiving fathers flying over the army camp, which is not something they normally do. So Atlantis definitely has some winged shoes and is probably using those to move in forgiving fathers as quickly as possible because we've seen they are very useful. And of course we should have another tyrant in the south here. Was wondering what happened to the raid here, and of course this is the one that got mind hunted. So unfortunately, that also leaves this group kind of high and dry because they were hoping to, help utilize the Tyrant to assist in some of their raiding. So we're pulling them back for now, probably just a block raiding. But yeah, really this group is like in an awkward spot now. Like I don't think they can realistically push forward and take anything meaningful. So not sure what we're going to do with them. It'll probably become the nucleus of another army. Like we are still doing some recruitment down here. Interestingly, some Cyclops soldiers. Not sure about this. They are really hard to mass, right? You're maxed out 2 per fort per turn. So, trying to get them up at this point, not so sure about that. But, we do have a decent amount of infantry here already in these 2 forts. So if we bring that up, looks like we're probably recruiting. Okay, yeah, we're recruiting some more Cyclops soldiers over here. So we bring all this together with some more mage support, and I do think that we'll have a respectable army, but unfortunately, there's a lot that Atlantis could bring to bear against it, and I'm just not sure we're going to be able to beat what Atlantis has in their capital. So we'll have to see what we end up doing there. Would like to use those forces to try to take this throne, but realistically, we may need to use those forces defensively if Atlantis launches this against us. Now, in the good news department, Atlantis, of course, is facing off against 2 opponents. So here's where Ulm's army is, looking like it's probably going to be interested in this fort that they just lost. Another reason that potentially we may not have to face this army in the lake. And of course, Ulm is going to be interested in this throne. But still overall, like it's feeling kind of stalematey, which is not good, especially right if it's a 2v1 and you're in the 2. So we'll see. I think that more or less covers it for what we're doing. We are recruiting some Mouflon in the capital, of course, continuing our Phlegra Tyrant production. At least losing the Tyrants means that we'll be able to keep recruiting the Tyrants, at least for the immediate future. Because definitely was somewhat concerned about, the upkeep getting us to a point where we just wouldn't be able to recruit Tyrants anymore. As long as you keep losing them, that shouldn't be a problem. Research, Alteration 9, you see no plans beyond that yet. Honestly, our research is in a pretty decent spot. I mean, we'd certainly like to have some other 9s, but I don't think there's really any research that we absolutely need. From this point, I think you'd probably want to be looking at some globals, but unfortunately, we really just don't have the gems for that because we've been spending them. So that covers it for us. In terms of the wider world, I don't think we've caught anything too interesting. This is Vedheim's army. They are regaining some territory, though it looks like overall the raiding war still not really in their favor, right? It's not like they're recapturing a lot of territory or recapturing a lot of territory quickly. Also, this army, I feel like somewhat has to be tethered to Xibalba, because, if it starts to head home, we do know that I think there was a fortification in this farm that was cracked, so potentially Vedheim has lost it to Marignan, and maybe this army needs to go back to help defend the capital, but in that case, Xibalba's probably empty. Should be bad news. So yeah, obviously Vedheim has been against the wall for a while, and they're still alive, right? This is their fort down here that Marignan abandoned. So Vedheim has managed to keep their head above water, but I think that's about all they're going to be able to do, at least in the immediate future. Otherwise, I don't think we've caught anything interesting. Just sort of pushing scouts around in various places. Still lacking knowledge in some areas of the map. Still don't know what Miquelin is going to be up to. But for the moment, at least, the world state seems to be stable. And I think that more or less covers turn 51.